If this is your first or second time here, hope you enjoyed the video. If this is your third time here, go ahead and hit that subscribe button so you can stay updated on when I post. Now, this was originally going to be part of the same video with the NCR until I realized how long I had, well, talked about the NCR. So I figured I'd just split it up into two videos. One about them, one about the Legion. So, I'm going to try to give the Legion the same treatment here. Now, a bunch of people just think that the Legion is nothing but savage tribals with spears and playing pretend like they're the Roman Empire, right? That's not true at all. They have a facade of it, sure, just like the NCR has a facade of old world America, but neither is true. Now, a quick history lesson on the Legion, since we don't see it founded in any game. The Legion was founded by three men that kind of accidentally their way into it. It was founded by Edward Sallow, Bill Calhoun, and Joshua Graham. Two of which were, if memory serves me correctly, followers of the apocalypse. Joshua Graham, on the other hand, was a translator and a Mormon from up by the Great Salt Lake. They all decided to venture into the mountains and try to contact some of the tribes up there to help, for lack of better words, civilize them. Now, I don't mean tribes as in Native American tribes. I mean tribes as in the tribal peoples that were created after the end of the world. Well, they ventured in to speak to this tribe that Joshua Graham knew the language of, and due to mistranslation or simple uneasiness, this tribe attempted to kill them, and they were spared as long as they would help that tribe, and then in helping this tribe defeat its enemies, they became the de facto leaders of this tribe. Now, Sallow, he took a liking to the leadership position. Calhoun really did not, and Joshua Graham was just kinda along for the ride at this point. Well, Sallow started giving out orders, which Graham would have to translate to the tribes, and they started to assimilate more and more tribes. Eventually, Calhoun went back to the followers with information saying that Sallow was not coming back and to never send anyone out there to stop him. Joshua Graham continued to give orders, well, to translate orders, and then he moved on to giving orders. Sallow took the name Caesar, modeled them all after the legions of ancient Rome and their militaristic attitude. Joshua Graham became the first legate of Caesar's legion, and so began the Legion as we know it. They subjugated quite a few tribes, enslaved the ones that would not bow down to them, or just outright genocided them. And as such, the culture of the Legion was heavily based off of the believed views of an idealized Roman Empire, is the best way to put it. They had slaves in a slave caste and were extremely militaristic. Now you may think, okay, well, there are other strange tribes out there, like the Vipers that worship a snake god and whatnot. What makes the Legion so different? Well, what makes the Legion so different is that it holds as much land, if not more land, than the New California Republic. They hold the lands directly west of the Mojave. Nope, directly east of the Mojave. Directions. Down to Yuma. They own up along the Great Staircase, and they hold influence out to Denver. They hold down through the Great Plains, down through the plains of Texas, all the way down to Sonora in Mexico. This empire is vast. Like I said, rivaling that of the NCR, and was all put together by one man within a few decades. Because Caesar understood you need a few things to drive people forward. You need a common goal, and then you need a way to be able to support that common goal. And he understood that as logistics. He knew that Rome ran on logistics. How they would slowly push further and further forward to create a front, and then that front over the course of decades would move further and further outward, expanding Rome. But he also knew that these fronts were bolstered by the logistical networks leading up to it. Not just the militaristic logistics, but civilian logistics networks. After all, if you have a bunch of soldiers pushing forward, they're going to have family, or they're going to make families along the way. So they're going to want safer places to stay, not just inside a fort or a camp. So smaller tent cities would first pop up, and then more permanent towns would pop up along the way, and people wouldn't necessarily uproot every time to follow. There would be a bunch of camp followers, mind you. But these leftover places that would stay would be stops along the way. Another place that would have all of the supplies that you need when you need them, just on hand, right? That's how Rome survived and expanded the way it did. Caesar was unique in knowing that supply line needed to be established. The logistics needed to be there. But how do you uphold logistics if your people are just scavengers, going through the refuse of the old broken world? You don't survive for long. Which means originally the Legion had to raid others to survive, and in doing so expanded more and more, brought more under the banner of the Legion, until eventually there weren't many more tribes to raid. Sure, you had your slave caste, as every individual's and every group of people on the planet have had at some point in time. It's just, what else could you do? Well, he was a follower of the apocalypse, extremely learned, knew Latin, knew history. So he realized, okay, well, while we could do what the NCR is doing, just find old world facilities that are still working, tap into them, and just try to keep them going for as long as we can, that won't actually solve the problem in the long run. So, what he suggested was start from square one. He knew for the Legion to survive beyond him in any significant way, shape, or form, that they would need to be able to understand where they came from. After all, he took tribal peoples, right? People that after the end of the world, their families just fucked off into the mountains and have not come back down, right? They lived off the land, they have their own unique languages and the like. These people knew nothing of the way the world used to work beyond stories they heard. So you can't really toss them into a nuclear well and say, hey, fix this and keep it running for the next indefinite period of time to give us power. No. Start off simple. Start off rough. Start off with stuff they can understand. Basic manufacturing, for instance. Ancient Rome was known for its manufacturing. So, they took pre-war items, lawnmower blades, for instance. That's what most of the machetes the Legion use are made out of. Just lawnmower blades. Manufacturing plants that can stamp them out, okay. But the reality of it is, the stamps that output these blades could really be operated manually if you needed them to. And it's easy enough to show how you would get these blades from stamping them out. So they manufactured their own machetes, and their own spears, and their own armor. Everything the Legion seems to use is manufactured by the Legion, from manufacturing lines created by the Legion. I know it doesn't seem significant or complex to build a throwing spear out of a jagged, tipped piece of metal and a pipe, because it's not. But when you get 40 people doing it, well, that's manufacturing. What about sharpening a piece of metal into a machete? Again, same thing. Not complex, but the fact that they are doing this in bulk for the soldiers to use shows that they have the manufacturing capabilities and that they have expanded. Along with that, they could have found any type of pre-war facility that would make stim packs. They don't make stim packs, though. Why? Because when the systems go down that make those stim packs, they wouldn't be able to make stim packs anymore. So they rely on healing powder and different herbal and natural medicines that can easily be farmed and created by the Legion so that they can understand it. Yes, Caesar uses advanced technologies in his auto dock and his displacer glove, if memory serves me right. It's just he understands them, so he uses them compared to the average Legionnaire who doesn't, so they don't. So, to move an aside from Legion troops, we need to talk about the Legion's home. Again, the Legion can't be, just from its sheer size alone, being able to rival the NCR the way it does. It just can't be large amounts of tent cities out there. It's not possible. The Legion most definitely has actual cities with electricity and running water and the like, for the simple reason of the supply lines need to be upheld for the war front. Caesar knows this, and while he could be back in whatever their capital is, Denver or something, he's not. He's on the front to show that he is a leader. And then the biggest thing that comes later when the Legion starts to ramp up its actual attack on the NCR is the actual Legion soldiers coming to the front. The Legionnaires in the heavy armor with the bits of power armor attached to it, using super sledgehammers and anti-material rifles, 12-point whatever SMGs and hunting shotguns and thermite lances, and these Legionnaires are called forward to the front because they were policing lands back home and or keeping wild fronts that aren't exactly war fronts in check. But since Caesar needed a show of power for the Legion along the front here, he brought many of the more inexperienced troops to fight. Not even to fight, just to hold as a show of power. And it seems to be working with the NCR. Now, the 12.7mm SMGs, the shotguns, the thermite lances, the anti-material rifles, these heavy-hitting pieces of hardware are most likely manufactured by the Legion. Not huge amounts, but they are most likely manufactured by the Legion due to the principles of one of the founders of the Legion, Joshua Graham. While he's not talked about, he is still on the coinage. His people took pride in the identity of the firearm that they carried. His group carried the 1911, the .45 pistol. It says one of his tribe even created the design a long time ago. Everyone in his tribe knew how to take apart the firearm, how it worked on a fundamental level, and how to put it back together, how to properly maintain and service this gun, along with many of the other tribes of the area he was from, such as the, if memory serves me correctly, the White Legs and their storm drums, the Thompson SMGs. This type of mentality would have been brought into the Legion. To fully understand something, to take care of it, to be able to use and utilize it. Which is why they don't use and utilize energy weapons, because they can't manufacture them in bulk. And while sure, one person can understand how it works and maintain and upkeep one gun, it would take too much time and too much effort to try to do it for everybody. So instead, ballistic weapons. They all work on the same principle. So, just do that, which is what they did. And this also extends to one of the main reasons why Caesar wants to take the NCR, the New California Republic, for the Legion anyway. It's not as simple as he wants to conquer another place. It's not as simple as he wants to subjugate its people, because he doesn't. It's along the lines of he wants the civilian institutions that have been able to pop up in the NCR over the last 150 years or however long it's been, along with the understanding that they hold, to be brought into the Legion. Because as of right now, the Legion is like maybe 30 years old at its oldest, while the NCR has been around for a long time, and individuals like the Gunrunners and the Crimson Caravan have popped up in that time. whilst everything for the Legion is run by the government of the Legion, is owned by the government of the Legion. It's a totalitarian dictatorship where everything is owned by Caesar, and he doesn't want that at the end of the day. He wants a country that can sustain itself. And he knows if he brings the New California Republic into Caesar's Legion, into his Legion, he can just assimilate everything that is already there. Just like Rome did. Find something that works, take it for your own, right? Make it yours. So all of these civilian institutions, these places of learning, these manufacturing depots that know how to manufacture, like the gun runners, the food infrastructure and whatnot, that's all in place. Well, yes, they do farm their own food and their own crops and their own medicines. It's more the knowledge, the know-how, and the understanding to give this to the next generation that he wants to take from the NCR. That is what Caesar's overall plan is. And while the NCR at this point is mostly just a loose affiliation of pretty much city-states, all under the governing law of the New California Republic. And whilst they still take the NCR's currency and they take the help of the NCR military, most likely as some type of police force, Caesar's Legion, everything is run by Caesar's Legion. Right? While San Francisco was the Xi Empire, now belongs to the NCR, is still probably the territory of the Xi Empire. They accept NCR currency, still use bottle caps, still have their own customs and laws. Sure, you'll see NCR troops here and there, but by the by, it's still the Xi's territory. Compare that to someplace in Arizona, like Phoenix. I don't know if they actually have Phoenix, but like Phoenix. You go there and the shops that you can use your Legion coinage at would be owned by Caesar's Legion, run by Caesar's Legion, supplied by Caesar's Legion, from farms that are owned by Caesar's Legion, right? Caesar's Legion is the entirety of that area, whilst the NCR is mostly just a blanket at this point. So, at the end of the day, Caesar's Legion boils down to one man holding it all together as the literal owner of the Legion. Hence why his name is on it and why he hasn't named it like Neo-Rome or something. Or like Neo-Romulus or something. And whilst he wants what's best for the Legion, for them to understand fundamentally where they're coming from and where they're going, to be able to properly maintain themselves in the long run, as of right now, especially with Caesar pretty much being on his deathbed, he is trying to get everything in place before he dies, which is what trying to take the NCR is actually about. Because if he can get these institutions, these places of learning, these places of know-how, with all of this knowledge on the upkeep of the facilities of the NCR, he can adapt that through his understanding of the followers of the apocalypse to be able to teach his people how to properly create a power generation system instead of tapping into old ones. How to properly create large-scale manufacturing so that they can create canned goods. For as much as people hate canned goods nowadays, they were revolutionary at the time they were invented. Right? A type of shelf-stable food that can stay on your shelf for years at a time without spoiling. That's amazing. And be able to transport it long distances with minimal fuss can literally change the world, right? There's an old anecdote from World War II on one of the captured Nazi officers explaining how he understood that the war was lost to them. He said that they were raiding supply lines, and one of the supply lines they raided was a mail truck, just a truck delivering mail. And in the post, they found a chocolate cake. They ate the chocolate cake, but one of the translators said that chocolate cake had come from the Midwest of the United States, and it was still fresh in Germany. That's when he understood that the war was lost to them, because Come on now, look at the logistical nightmare it would take to transport a chocolate cake, flour, eggs, milk, from the Midwest of the United States, half the world away, right? So, if they could manufacture food in bulk like that, and armor and weapons in bulk like that, whilst also keeping their militaristic attitudes, they would be damn near unstoppable. And then you toss the Enclave's know-how and understanding of sophisticated systems and technologies into it, and you got yourself a hell of a problem for anyone else trying to challenge them. Now, I say the Enclave because there's no way in hell that the NCR completely destroyed the Enclave and then did not take absolutely everything they could learn from the Enclave. Think World War II and Nazi scientists with the United States and NASA, right? There's no way they're going to let these people get away with the knowledge they have. Anyway, one of the big things here that I'm going to tack on at the end of it here, supports this even in-game, is the Hoover Dam. The reason Caesar's Legion is there and attacking is because they want the Hoover Dam and everything beyond it. But one of the interesting things you come across if you side with the NCR is that the Legion is just popping up out of different places the NCR didn't know existed in the dam. Old spillways and slipways and old infrastructure they didn't know existed. And they're able to infiltrate the dam in such high volumes of numbers that the dam is pretty much lost at that point unless your character intervenes. You can see this in different, even in the independent endings with Yes Man and House. The Legion just popping up out of random buildings along the dam. How come the Legion knows so much about the Hoover Dam? How come the Legion knows how to infiltrate the dam? Well, it's because Caesar made sure that the Legion understood how hydropower worked, so that they could properly use and utilize it to power the actual cities of the Legion. Are they huge cities? No, they're not huge cities, but still. It fully explains why the Legion is so able to do this. Now with that, I'm just gonna hop off and begin to edit this video before this one gets too long in the tooth. And this should make a good couple of weeks worth of videos here. So, I'd like to thank Eric Hewitt for sticking around this long, man. It's much appreciated. I'd like to thank Big O for coming and hanging out. Thanks, man. It is appreciated. And with that, I'm going to, well, start editing these.